Hello, everyone. This is another in a series of podcasts that I've been recording for Task, but this one is slightly different because we wanted to start to highlight in easy bite-sized pieces the sort of advice and help that Task can provide for people within our ambulance community. And I'm really pleased to be joined today by Julie Delaney, who is our money and benefits advisor at Task. Good morning, Julie. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you, Karl?
I'm good. I'm good. Julie, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today, amongst the many things you do, but wanted really to focus on something called PIP. And PIP has been a source of a lot of debate in Parliament on the news. And I know you do a lot of work on it. So what is PIP?
PIP is personal independence payment, and it's a benefit that's paid to people who've got additional needs with daily living or mobility because of a health condition or a disability.
And who can it help? Do you have to be out of work? Do you have to be?
It can help anybody at all. It doesn't matter if you're working. It doesn't matter if you have got another income. It doesn't matter if you've got savings. It's an additional benefit that's paid on top of anything else that you might already be getting, providing you're entitled because if you've got the additional needs with your daily living or mobility.
It's really interesting because that's something I didn't know. So that means if I was a chief executive of an ambulance service trust, then provided I had the medical condition and I needed the support, which we'll talk about in a little while, there's nothing to stop me applying, is there?
No, nothing at all. It doesn't matter if you win the lottery on Wednesday, you're still entitled.
Yeah. Well, hopefully somebody will win the lottery that's around, and do remember Task when you do that. So what sort of health conditions or circumstances might make someone eligible for PIP?
But there's nothing specific. It's anything that, as I say, that will affect your ability to carry out daily living activities or mobility. So, for instance, you could have problems. You could have something like fibromyalgia that affects all of your body. It affects you being able to, do things, being able to walk, being able to pick things up, getting yourself dressed, getting yourself in and out of a shower. You don't necessarily not need to be able to do those things, but you just it needs to be more difficult than for somebody who hasn't got those conditions. And it's not just physical conditions either. There are also questions that relate to people's mental health and ability because of that.
Okay. And I think we've talked about that's really quite interesting. So it's not what people often think by the way of a benefit of this sort. It can be a range of conditions that can affect anyone to different degrees that, if I can sum up from what I've heard from you, but just make life much more difficult for you because of the condition or conditions that you have. Yeah, that's really interesting. And
you don't necessarily, sorry.
No, carry on, Julie.
You don't necessarily have to have help carrying out those activities. What it's always difficult to get across to people is you don't have to have the help, you just have to have the need. So if life would be easier if somebody helped you in and out of the shower or the bath, then a lot of people don't apply because they think, well, I haven't got anybody to help me because I live on my own. But that doesn't then mean that you can't make an application.
Okay, no, that's really interesting because sometimes people think, you're going to have to be paying this money out to other people to come and provide care and support. So that's a misconception certainly I had. So that's really, really interesting. So you've talked about claiming. How do people go about claiming?
So initially what you have to do, which is the hardest part because it takes them maybe 40 minutes to answer the telephone, is to ring the DWP and ask them, tell them that you need to make a claim. It's quite straightforward. You just need your name, your address, your national insurance number, and they ask for your bank details when you ring up because you no longer put those on a form. So that they're rolling out at the moment online applications, but they're postcode based. So some people still have to do the paper based application forms. Some people are able to do online application forms. That form's sent out to you either way, and you've got a month to complete it and send it back. Once the DWP receive that form back, they will then employ somebody called a healthcare professional who will contact you. Ever since COVID, those have all been done over the telephone, and at the moment they remain the same, who will go through the questions with you on the application form. They then send a report back to the DWP, and then a decision is made, and the DWP will inform you. The day that you contact them, no matter how long it takes for a claim to be decided, if you're successful, it's backdated to the day that you contacted them.
Right. So it's make a phone call, give you details. Big tip, don't hang up, stay on the phone because they'll eventually answer. So it could be 40 minutes, which is really good to know because I can just put the phone down quickly on people if it's not answered. So that's really, really good to know. How difficult is the form to complete? Because that's the next stage, isn't it? After that, there's a form.
Right. It isn't too difficult to complete. If I would say that if you've never filled in a PIP form before, you need help from somebody who knows how to fill the form in, how the questions need to be answered. Because just say, for instance, the first question on the form is planning and preparing a cooked meal. But it doesn't say to you that you might need to sit down in order to do that. And if you need to sit down in order to prepare and cook a meal, then you need help preparing and cooking a meal because you need the help of a stool or a chair.
Right. Because that again is really interesting because, a lot of people think that you fill out a form and you can just give answers and that's helpful. But I think what you're saying here is by getting help from someone like yourself, it enables people to give a better picture, a more, I don't know, I use the word sort of truthful, not that they're trying to lie, but actually explains the process better that they have to go through in preparing a meal. And I suspect that's where a lot of people fall down, isn't it? That they they just say, no, I'm okay with that, when in fact, might take me 15 minutes to think about and prepare beans on toast, but for someone else, it could be quite a process. So that's really interesting. And do you think in this way you could?
I was going to say, if you suffer with something like brain fog, you need to think about, do you ever put a pan on to boil and then become distracted and go away and do something else, and then that pan, is left to boil dry.
Okay. So this is where you can come in and help, I assume, Julie, with the work that you do, that you can help people once they've got form to complete it, to give that picture of themselves.
Yes.
Great. So let's assume I've come to you. Let's assume, I've got problems that I think I have. You've helped me to complete the form. What happens when the form is submitted?
The form goes back to the DWP, and as I just said, what happens then is the DWP employs somebody called a healthcare professional, and the healthcare professional will then arrange to speak to you to go through the questions on the form. They don't necessarily ask the questions in the same format as they're on the form. Sometimes they might ask you about your ability to drive, and they might use that to see whether or not you've got manual dexterity. So they don't go through the questions question by question, but they will go through a series of questions to get an idea of how your illness or disability affects you. They then submit a report back to the DWP, who then make a decision based on the answers on your form and the report from the healthcare professional.
From what you say, it isn't that they're trying to trip you up, it's that trying to get a fuller picture from just what you've said in the form. Again, which is quite interesting. So,
but I have compiled over the many years I've been doing PIP forms a list of potential questions that they have asked previously that I will always send to people when I know that they're going to have the interview with the healthcare professional. And I just find that helps. It gets them sort of used to what question, gives them an idea of what questions are likely to be asked. And they can prepare then as well.
And it's very easy to be thrown, isn't it? And a bit like you and I are talking now, when you do these sorts of things, sometimes you can think, oh, I've answered that. Then about an hour later, you go, no, I should have said this as well. So helping people to prepare is an important part of it. So if they say yes, what sort of additional money can people get? Because I know you said at the start that if the clock starts, you're getting the benefit from the time that you phone to register for a
Yes,
claim. So what sort
and
of
then
amounts of money per week, per month are we talking about here for people?
right. So the lowest the PIP is in two parts. There's a daily
Okay.
living section and there's a mobility section, and each section has two parts. There's a standard award and there's an enhanced award. So you can be awarded anything from £28 a week to 100 and just short of £186 a week, depending on what level you're awarded. And each question that you go through on a PIP form has an amount of points that can be awarded to you for
Right.
that
Okay.
question. And you need to score 8 points for a standard award, 12 points for an enhanced award, but you can score 12 points on one question on some of the questions. So it's not
Okay.
that you need to score points on every question,
Everything.
on every question. It's just, it's over I think there's 15 questions in total.
Wow. I mean, that's worth just sort of you pausing and thinking here to someone that's, in work, that's struggling to cope with a lot of the everyday tasks that most of us take for granted, regardless of their income, regardless of whether they've just won the lottery and they're sitting on millions, they could get, depending on the amount of scores, somewhere between £28 and £186
A week.
per week extra benefit, which then I assume gets, as you said, gets backdated from the day that they make the phone call.
Yes.
Brilliant.
It takes from start to finish, on average, a PIP plan takes around 12 weeks from the time that you send the form back to the time that you get a decision from the DWP.
That's not bad, really, in time to get what could be, an amount of money that is going to be really helpful for the individual and perhaps the individual and their family.
Yep.
But what happens? I mean, there's an assessment. We know
Mm-hmm.
that there's an assessment, so therefore I suspect they say no to a lot of people. So what can you do if someone, and how can we help someone where they've got a decision to say you're not entitled? What would you do if I came to you and said, I'd listened to that podcast that you did with that bloke, and I did what you said, I did it, I thought about everything, but they've come back and they've said to me no. So what can you do for me, Julie?
There's a process that you have to go through. First of all, you have to notify the DWP that you're not happy with the award, whether it be no award or an award that you're not happy with because you don't think it's
Mm-hmm.
enough, and you do something called a mandatory reconsideration, which is where you write to the DWP and ask them to reconsider their decision.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't always, it's not always successful because you're asking the DWP to change a decision that the DWP made
Mm-hmm.
initially. But you have to do that first in order
Okay.
to go to an appeal. And an appeal is where you go to a tribunal. It's not in a court. Most of the ones I do at the
Mm-hmm.
moment are over the telephone or by video, where it's three independent people who will look at your case. They will look up the decision that the DWP has made, and then they will make a decision, an independent decision. To be honest, people are much more successful at appeal, and the DWP don't think that many people will go to appeal, which is why
Okay.
sometimes they'll say no at the initial stage.
Okay. So interestingly, so
Mm-hmm.
that's great. So I've come to you. I've been told no. You tell me I need to go through, I think you said this mandatory request to review
Reconsider.
process, reconsider.
Mandatory reconsideration.
Blimey. So the mandatory reconsideration of my case, they've
Mm-hmm.
said no to that. So I have to go to an appeal tribunal. Now I'm actually very nervous about anything like that. I hate being in public. I hate answering questions about who I am, what I can do, what I can't do. Some of the things I'm quite embarrassed by. But I got the impression that you could help me with that because you talked about it being
Yes.
by potentially by video. So are you allowed to speak for me at those events to
Yes.
make sure my case
Yes.
is put over?
Yes, I can represent people at appeal hearings, and I have represented a number of people at appeal. It's not saying that the board won't ask a question to the individual,
Yeah.
but there's not a problem with having a representative there who can talk on your behalf, which I have done.
So that sounds great. That's reassured me. I've gone through the process. I, just moving on a little bit. Have you got any examples that you're able to give without giving personal details of the sorts of results you've had after you've taken people to a tribunal?
Yeah, well, most recently we had a lady who had made an application. Her application had been turned down. She had done a mandatory reconsideration herself just over the telephone, because people don't realise that the best way to do it is in writing. When she came to us, we decided that we thought appealing would be the best idea, and we appealed and we won the appeal. And she received an award for 5 years, and she also received a rather large lump sum payment for the
Well,
arrears,
so
because unfortunately it takes a long time to get to appeal. At the moment, because of backlogs, it takes maybe 12 months to get to appeal. Hers, she received 18 months back pay.
well, that's a lot of money. How many thousands of
Yeah,
pounds is that approximately?
it was just over £7,000.
Which is a very nice result. I bet you were very pleased with yourself. Good,
Yes, I was.
good.
But
No, I think
I've been quite successful at appeal. I think that if people are prepared to go to appeal, it is a really good thing to do, because it's
that's
independent.
yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because what you've described for me is a process that's designed to make a decision relatively quickly, given these things. Even though 12 weeks is a long time, but actually you got a point where you need help, and which we can provide, or you can provide, by helping people with the form to complete it, what to say, help about their mandatory request to review.
Reconsideration.
I knew I'd get that wrong.
Mm.
Mandatory request for reconsideration, but then there's the appeal. We can support people through that, and actually the outcomes can be really good. Have you any idea how much extra benefit that you've got for people in total over the last 12 months, the last couple of years?
Thousands. Probably with back pain, things like that, maybe over £50,000, maybe more.
Okay, which is a really nice result. So
Yeah.
I've
I
listened
mean,
to this. Go on.
hopefully you get the benefit at the first, when you first make the application. But
Yeah,
what I'm trying to say is that if you don't, that isn't the end of the road. That isn't you making an application and you're not entitled. There's a process that you can go through where you can still be successful at a later date, if not first time. But hopefully we're successful first time.
which is a great result, which means people get
Yeah,
the money when they need
yeah,
it and as soon as they need it,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
fabulous. So how do people get in touch with you? How do they contact you for help?
By telephone ringing Task, or by emailing support at Task, and then the details will be passed over to me, and then I will arrange to give them a call, go through the details with them, and then decide whether or not we think they should submit a claim.
Thank you, Julie. That's really good. So anyone out there that is listening that thinks that they are having difficulties because of a mental or physical condition or conditions they've got, there is a benefit that is designed to help you. It's not means tested. It doesn't depend on what money you've got in the bank. It doesn't depend on whether you're in work or not. Those things are there. It's purely about your conditions.
Yes.
If you want more information, you want support and help with making a claim for the benefit that could make a big difference to you and your family potentially, then do get in touch with Task. Julie's here to help. And Julie, thank you. I've learned a lot today, and I will try and remember what the mandatory thingy-majig was at some point.
Okay.
But it shows how complex these things could be and how off-putting. So don't hesitate to contact us. We're here to help. Thank you, Julie. It's been a pleasure.